everyone, my name is Bobby Shortle, and I'm here with Nick Rocco Scalia, and we are the Intrepid Filmographers. Every mini-series we chart a course through the filmography of an under-discussed genre or journeyman filmmaker. In this expedition, we try to do our best to be explorers, using our years of film knowledge to help guide us, but always being open to discovering new things about the medium we love so much. This week, we continue our special expedition into the films of Peter Jackson, and today we are talking about his 2012 return to Middle-earth, The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey, and find out just how many songs you can fit into one prequel. Nick, how you doing tonight, my friend?
Doing good. How are you?
The road goes ever on and on, my friend.
There and back again. See, I know a little bit of Tolkien from this movie.
I was gonna try to sing the Misty Mountains song. Misty Mountains.
We'll talk about that tonight. We'll talk about that for sure.
So we have just as Peter Jackson returned to Middle Earth, we have returned to Middle Earth after 2 movies away from this.
Not as reluctantly as him, probably.
No, not as reluctantly as him.
I was looking forward to talking about this.
And we'll talk about that. I mean, obviously, a big part of the discussion is about the pre-production of this movie, where I think a lot of keys to unlock probably how we're going to feel about these 3 movies is a lot in the development of these movies. But, the short of it is, that basically from the time Lord of the Rings was going, people were asking him about The Hobbit. Basically, once Lord of the Rings was a success, it was like, okay, when are you going to do The Hobbit? Because how can you, there literally is just another book waiting for you to make another $1 billion movie out of. So let's go. Like, why would you not do that, right?
And it was always part of his plan to make The Hobbit. That was initially going to be the movie he was going to make to kind of start everything off and kind of do them in chronological order like that, which would have been pretty interesting. He was going to do The Hobbit as one film, which probably it should have been. Like, what I know about it suggests that maybe that's the way to go, and then split up the Lord of the Rings trilogy into 2, so what could have probably been done in 3 movies ended up getting done in 6.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think we would all agree that doing the Lord of the Rings in 2 movies would have been a mistake. So, I
wouldn't have known at the time.
Right. But we dodged a bullet, I think, in that space. But, like, this movie, like fan, let the Hobbit happen.net or whatever it was like a big website that was happening at the time,
I don't remember that at all. I'm gonna have to take your word for that.
Well, because you weren't a big Lord of the Rings head, like, as far as like the nerd aspect. I know, but like the deeper the book aspect of it, because you probably weren't on the OneRing.net like every day reading stories about production of the movies and all that kind of stuff, which I was. And this this kind of groundswell. Now, of course, they're famously. But, a lot of people knew it then, and probably not as many people know it now. There was a different issue with The Lord of the Rings than there was with The Hobbit than there was with Lord of the Rings, which was that 2 studios had the rights to the books, to The Hobbit. Warner Brothers, who owned New Line Cinema, had the rights to make the film, produce the film, but MGM had the right to release the film. And if you know anything about, business, no one's going to spend $300 million to make a movie and then not be the ones who make the majority of the money upon releasing the movie, right? Basically, if they made the movie for that budget and MGM released it, they would recoup their money once it made their money back, but they wouldn't share in any of the profits. MGM would take the profits. So it was going to take some business deals, right, to make it happen. And MGM by this point is not really a functioning, liquid studio at this point. It is
very shaky history right up until this year when Amazon kind of came in.
Yeah, Amazon bought them last year or whatever
Maybe
it was.
Last year, yeah.
Whatever it was, but yeah, Amazon bought them.
Basically everything up till that was just kind of train wreck after train wreck, I feel like, for MGM.
Yeah, and then right after this, they basically kind of like go away and become like just a library. Basically, It just becomes a thing where like you like. I'm not sure if Amazon bought the library first and then whatever. Somebody bought the library before Amazon had it, just because it has obviously an amazing treasure trove of movies in it. But they weren't in any position to make a movie like this, right? But they could definitely use the money to make a movie like this. But it was also like, okay, Warner Brothers also wasn't going to go, okay, we'll spend all the money to make the movie, and then we'll release it together and share the profits. I'm like, no. You have to pay for some of the movie as well if you want to share in the profits. So huge, like...
It's one of the one things like that, though, where you knew it was getting made one way or the other, right? Like, they just had to work out whatever it was, but it wasn't like this was just going to go into turnaround. Like, there was no more surefire property in this period then.
Yeah, but it took a long time. And if you were paying attention, at the moment, there were more than once where it really seems like it was not going to happen. At least not for many, many years, basically, until basically MGM went away. Basically, there was a point where everyone was like, well, until MGM is like just gone, like, or somebody buys them, this is not going to ever happen. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what happened leading up to it. From the beginning, Peter Jackson was like, I don't really want to make this movie because I don't want, making those 3 movies was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. I don't want to do that again. And also, he said this in a few interviews, I don't want to feel like I'm competing with myself when I'm making these movies and feeling like I have to like recreate certain things or call back to certain things or whatever. So I'm not going to do it. But he wanted to be involved with the producing and the writing, obviously, of it.
Or outdo certain things, right? Like,
yeah.
I think maybe that'd be the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Was like there's some expectation, even though it's a much smaller story, that you have to make it bigger, badder, better than the biggest thing ever.
And if you're Peter Jackson, who we've been obviously talking about for weeks and weeks and weeks now, he is not a director who's like, no, I think that this one I'm going to go small. Like, that's just not what he does. He's not going to sit back and go like, I can just kind of do like a smaller version of what I did last time.
King Kong was his little movie after the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
His tiny little $300 million movie.
So it goes up and up and up with that. They hire Guillermo del Toro to make the movie. He comes in and he's there for like basically 2 years, writing the script with Jackson, Boyens, and Walsh, pre-proing the movie, designing the movie. He is a full-fledged auteur, filmmaker who really, really cares about design and the way things look and the way things feel. And basically was in New Zealand for 2 years trying to get this movie made. It kept getting delayed. The crazy thing is Warner Brothers was pouring money into pre-production. They didn't even have a green light on the movie yet because they couldn't work out the deal with MGM. They felt like they were going to get it done. And then there was this thing where MGM was like, their finances were kind of shit they got a big financial speed bump. And they were like, we can't pay for our part of the movie. And so Warner Brothers was like, okay, we're going to have to take a 6-month pause on everything that's happening. And basically Guillermo del Toro to decide, do I stay for another 6 months and hope that the movie starts in 6 months? Or do I stay another 6 months just to be told, no, actually, it's going to be another 6 months before this movie, is a go? And so Del Toro leaves the project.
Before we go on, though, I did want to just mention, I think we can leave Del Toro behind at this point. A couple of things I read said that it was a little bit of, I don't want to say Jackson's fault necessarily, but I guess the development of the script just kind of took a lot longer than they were expecting to, and how they were going to split the story up, and, how they were going to do this. This was originally planned as 2 movies, and the way those 2 were going to work, like what's going to be the ending of the first one. And so that was the other thing. So, the studios are having their battles back and forth over money. Del Toro is kind of not exactly at odds with Jackson about it, but, Jackson and his usual Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens, they're working on the scripts and are not sort of banging them out as quickly, maybe as, not even the scripts, the treatment and the outline. So just how the story is going to work. And then they had to get that greenlit, and then they had to go write the scripts.
Well, the thing was like,
already getting pushed back, and already kind of they were struggling to figure out exactly what it was going to be.
Yeah,
but
no matter
important, I think,
what was going on with the script at that point, literally the studios did not have a deal, so the movie could not go regardless of where the script was at that point. But yes, there was a lot of script issues going on as well. I mean, Del Toro, if you take him out, what he says, like he left, he said because of MGM. He said, I did not believe that. That the studio was solvent and sound, and that I could rely on the money coming through to make for the movie to actually go. And he had put off, multiple projects for many years, because he had this run where he was trying to make, The Mountains of Madness. He worked on that for many years, and then basically, like he had like Tom Cruise attached to it, and then they got that the plug got pulled on that. Partway through, basically in development. So he's developing that for years, and then he moves on to this and develops this for years. So that's why we look at Del Toro's filmography. There's like a huge gap in when his movies come out, because
And he's pretty prolific up to that point. He's making movies in Spanish, making movies in English. He's kind of going back and forth between indie stuff, studio stuff, like Devil's Backbone, that era. You know, then he makes Blade 2. So, yeah, he's not used to doing the Peter Jackson thing where you take a few years off in between and kind of develop a project over that large span of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Del Toro leaves, and basically what happens is there's like this weird kind of period where the whole production is basically up in the air because Jackson hasn't decided he's going to direct it. They can't, you know, don't have a full green light yet with the money yet from the studio. And because of those two things, the other departments, like the casting department, can't move forward. They can't cast anybody because their management is like, we're not going to book our guy with you. Like, when is this movie going to happen or whatever? So Jackson basically has to step up and be like, I'm going to do it. You know, part of it is, you know, you bring another director, right? And you got to start the whole process over again. And also, like, you know, Jackson knows the crew. He knows everything that's going on. He knows the world. So step in, you end up saving the movie. You save a bunch of people's jobs and you get going. But even he goes like, you know, I couldn't, you know, Guillermo had done all of this work, you know, concepting and everything. He's like, but I'm not Guillermo del Toro. I cannot just come in there and be like, yes, use these same designs. So they basically had to start over again anyway, like redesigning things.
And they are simpatico in some ways as directors and visually a little bit, but not in all ways. And I do think the Del Toro movie would have been a very different feeling movie.
Yes, for sure.
Certainly would have been a different looking movie. I think the special effects would have looked a lot different. And just the scope of the project might have been a little different too. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad it wasn't. I think when I first went to see this, I was like, this isn't going to be Jackson just trying to do a Del Toro movie. And it's not. I mean, you can say what you want about it, and I'm sure we will, but it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like he was trying to just, you know, be someone else. You know, I think he could have been a little bit more himself in some ways on this project, but he's not, you know, just aping another director's pretty distinctive style.
Yeah. The other thing about this movie, which I think a lot of people forget at this point, is that at this point, Jackson is, you know, in this sort of realm world with Spielberg and James Cameron and directors like that, where it's not even always enough anymore to make a movie. There's not so much Spielberg. This is more the Cameron thing. To make a movie, you've got to like invent something or do something different or challenge yourself in some way. And so he shoots this movie in 48 frames per second in 3D. And this was in this movement at this time. There was a couple of directors doing this who were like, you don't understand it. Like, removes like the artifice, and it's like you're in the world. And of course, this movie comes out and they release it in several formats. People hate the 48 frames a second thing. They hate it. Looks like a video, and basically
Cameron's still trying to do it.
Yes, I know, and it still is the same problem. Like, it still is the same problem.
So, I mean, maybe let's talk about that, because I really don't like it. I have always wanted to see, just as out of morbid curiosity, did you see the Ang Lee movie that was 128 frames per second?
Are you talking about the long halftime walk? Billy Lynn's long halftime walk. I've never seen it. That podcast Blank Check, they covered Ang Lee and they did a whole episode on it, and they had somebody on who was like really versed in like camera technologies and stuff like that, and he really got into like talking about how it all worked and everything like that. But yeah, I've never seen it. Does it work?
I mean, I would just love to know.
Yeah. Well, the real problem with the movie is there's really no way to see it in the way that he intended
how could you
it to be seen. You have to project it in 120 frames per second in 3D, you know, so it's like, it's just a lot, you know. But Ang Lee was very nice. I mean, he also did this with that Will Smith double movie, Gemini Man. Yeah. Gemini Man. So this was a movement for a little while, you know. Like you said, Cameron like kind of like the tip of the spear on it, and people hated it so much that the next two movies they didn't even release them like in those formats anymore. So yeah, you know, I think a big takeaway to this is just like Jackson never intended to make these movies, had a lot of reservations about making them, and then also when the go happened where he was like, I'm taking over, Lord of the Rings, he had 2 or 3 years to prep everything and get everything ready. He had 5 months to get this stuff ready. Yeah,
this project is already in the pipeline. It has to happen. He's not granted the usual time he has to develop things to the extent that he wants to do, and that also took away from a lot of the physicality and the practicality of this movie. So it's definitely a more CGI focused movie in locations and characters and things like that than anything in the original trilogy.
And you listen to like the special features on this movie and like in the big documentary they did on it, everybody is like, this was the hardest thing we ever had to do. Like Ian McKellen's like, I was like, maybe I should quit acting if I can't like handle the like trepidation that's happening, like, you know, to get this process, to get this thing done. You know, with 5 months ago, they hadn't built the set yet, right? Like this is like, because you don't do that until you know when the movie's going to happen, right? So all these factors are going on. To rewind a little bit, we talked a lot during Lord of the Rings time about like my and your sort of like relationship to Lord of the Rings before seeing the movies. The Hobbit, I had a very interesting relationship to, which was that obviously after I read Lord of the Rings, I read The Hobbit. And then when I was a sophomore in college, so basically 2001, right, Lord of the Rings comes out, right? And then the summer of 2002, right before the school year ends, my director for my theater program we're deciding what we're going to do in the fall of 2002, right? And I was obviously a Lord of the Rings freak, and I was like, there's like a Hobbit play. I know there's a Hobbit play. We should do The Hobbit. And my director was like, who was also like this, our theater program in my college was like part student, part community theater, because like the college really wouldn't fund it fully. So there was like this mix. So it was important to get people into the seats to see the whatever show we were doing. That was a big part of what we were doing.
So you're chasing that Hollywood money.
And yeah, chasing the Hollywood money. And my director was like, he was like, you know, like that would be great because obviously it's very like big at time. He's like, but honestly, he's like, Bobby, I've seen The Hobbit play. You know, it's terrible. Like the music in it is terrible. And I was like, I will over the summer adapt the book into a new play for us to do, like for the fall show, basically. So over the summer, as a 19-year-old, however old I was, I took the Hobbit book and turned it into a play. And we did it for our main stage show at the theater. I was Bilbo Baggins in the show. And like, you know, there was like an original score written by one of like the community members and like, you know, scored some of the songs. We did a lot of the songs and stuff like that. We had some crazy sets or whatever. So
it's not a musical, but it's got like, because the book has all the, you know, Tolkien's thing about writing poems and writing songs. So like all that's there. So it kind of, I guess, is a little bit of a musical.
A little bit of a musical. There was a couple, you know, we did like the Misty Mountains, you know, song and stuff like that. And then we did like there's a song at the end that's kind of like the road goes ever on and on, but a little bit different than the one that's in the Lord of the Rings that we did as like I did as like a solo on stage, like singing it at the end of the play, which was terrifying.
Well, you did give yourself like the greatest role, and which you
probably deserve. I still had to audition for the role. Like,
oh, really?
I wasn't given to me. Like there was there was a very real chance I wasn't going to get it. But we do the show, and we one of the big things, obviously, it's not in this movie. You know, it's the very end of the movie. The dragon, like Smaug, is a huge aspect of it, right? And we built like this, like basically the neck and head of a dragon that could like move and articulate. That came on, that like pushed onto the stage from backstage, and you know he wanted somebody like with a powerful voice to voice it. And the previous winter, we had done The Lion in Winter as a play, and Anthony Harvey directed the Lion in Winter movie, and he lived out there, and so he came to like rehearsals for that play to watch it. He did the voice of the dragon.
Oh wow!
The guy directed this like Anthony Hopkins, you know, Katharine Hepburn, like big prestige pick back in like the 60s or whatever it was, voiced the dragon Smaug in our production of The Hobbit. So I have a very intimate knowledge of The Hobbit, even though like it is not obviously my favorite of the books at all, but like I have a very close relationship to it, right? So,
and does footage of this exist? Because I would like to see it.
It does somewhere. I don't have it. They weren't good at taping the plays back then when I was there. So
that's awesome.
I don't have it, but I do
Although I do think that puts you in a strange position to appreciate, you know, this movie, this performance. It just, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can tell you I appreciate the performance very much. But
having adapted it and played the lead role in it.
but it gives me an interesting perspective, right? A perspective that not a lot of people might have on this. But that's kind of where I'm coming from this. Now, by the time, obviously, that's in 2002, but this 10 years later when the movie comes out, right? So it's pretty far in my past already, even at that point. But, I'm, of course, extremely excited. The first trailer drops, and I'm hooting and hollering, right? I'm like, the trailer looked like Lord of the Rings. I was excited for Martin Freeman to play Bilbo because I loved Martin Freeman. Ian McKellen's back, all of this kind of stuff. And there had already been rumblings, right, of the fact that there was going to be some of the stuff that's hinted at in the Hobbit book and is also hinted at in sort of like the appendices of the Lord of the Rings, the stuff that's happening like kind of outside of Bilbo's adventure that's kind of happening parallel, that's sort of arcing towards, what's going to happen in Lord of the Rings, basically. That stuff is all, most of that stuff, at least in this movie, is all Tolkien based. Like, this is not stuff that Jackson's making up to sort of like attach itself more to Lord of the Rings, So, all that stuff I'm excited about, I'm pumped for. So I walk into the theater, in 2012, very excited to see it. And I left the movie the first time, kind of being like very disappointed, right? I was pretty disappointed in this movie at the time. The point where I wasn't really even excited to see the second one. And then we'll talk about that as we go through, but that's how I felt coming out. I was disappointed in it. Also, I saw it in 48 frames a second. It looked like shit. I saw it again. I was like, I'm going to have to go see it again in like just regular. And I did see it again, but even at the time I was not loving it, but even at the time I was like, the criticisms people were levying at it weren't even my criticisms about it. So it's just very interesting. I would be interested to hear your thoughts and your memory of seeing it then and how you felt.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking forward to it. I knew this story. I knew all of this stuff from the movies. I really loved those movies. I had seen them a few times like everybody did back then. So I was, and especially because there was that long delay, that gap between the original trilogy and this, we had known what prequel trilogies could be like at that point. We had our Star Wars experience, and there were some reviews that compared this to Phantom Menace, both positive and mostly negative. But I remember, just kind of like thinking the same thing you did with that trailer, right? Like, this is Peter Jackson doing another Lord of the Rings movie. And I know I went into it, with tempered expectations. This is not going to be as good as Return of the King. It's a smaller story, but, I was ready to go back to that world. I was ready to see more of what he could do with that. It was nice that this was coming out because I was still, 10 years is not that much time. And like the memories of that trilogy were still very fresh and very warm for me. So, I went into it with like just slightly diminished expectations. Like, I thought it would be really good. I just didn't think it would be quite as good as the originals. And I remember walking out and actually not being disappointed at all. I was happy with it. I thought it was perfectly fine for what it was. I did miss a lot of the, the makeup effects and the, just the tactility, as I was saying before, of the original trilogy. And I know that was a big thing for Peter Jackson. And to see that sort of not happen, to see this be a little bit more like King Kong, like, I mentioned it when we talked about King Kong, right? Like that scene with the dinosaurs is kind of the tipping point for me from, young kid doing special effects in his backyard, Peter Jackson, to, digital auteur Peter Jackson, I guess. And this movie really kind of confirms that's what he ended up doing. So if there was a disappointment, it was that. But, I thought the scope of it was really great. I still do. Can I just put my cards on the table for this?
Yeah, I want to hear. Yeah.
Like I want to establish this now because I think I have a lot of criticisms about this movie, but like, seeing it in its entirety this time, particularly by the end of it, it kind of won me over again. I ended up really liking it. There's definitely a lot of choices that I don't like, both in the story, development, that side of things, and also the visuals. I do think the special effects are not quite up to the par, and the way locations are depicted here. We talked about that with the Lord of the Rings movies, right? Like, you see Rivendell for the first time and it looks like a real place, like you could live there. And there's just all this activity and movement and this depth to it that I don't think you get in these movies at all. I think the best location in this one is maybe the orc cave system, that whole, but that's also kind of fake looking. Everything has like a little bit of a kind of an uncanny valley kind of feel about it here that you don't get in the original trilogy. So I remember being disappointed by all that stuff, but like I kind of knew that going in. I had read about it and I knew about the development process and how difficult it was, and they just didn't have the time to craft, what they have in the original movie, like hundreds of suits of armor and like all of that stuff. So, I thought it was a reasonably good, modern, 2012 version of what we had seen 10 years earlier. And Yeah, I remember walking out of it being like, I'm looking forward to seeing more of these, and I'm glad he's making them. I'm glad this actually got done. And, I wasn't raving about it exactly. I did see the flaws in it even then. That time and even this time, I like this movie. I look forward to seeing it again. I don't think it's nearly the disaster I do think there's people kind of evaluate it a little unfairly now because it's the first of three and people don't like the other two. I don't know. It's not a bad movie, I would say.
No, and I think, Cards on the Table watching it this time, it's been a long time since I watched it, to be honest with you. It's been probably 10 years since I've watched it. Not a movie I go back to, but, this movie is not a disaster in any way, shape, or form. Like, it is an entertaining, fun adventure movie that suffers from a few of the things you mentioned, right? It suffers from just substandard CGI at times, I think some bad choices on how to implement like CGI and implement certain visual things that they're doing. I think it has some pacing problems, but to be honest with you, not as many pacing problems as I remember it having when I saw it back then.
I thought the same thing, yeah.
I thought it moved pretty fast. To be honest with you, I was like, oh, wow, I'm already halfway through this thing. And I feel like it's been a breeze so far, I think it's well acted. And I think that it's got a couple of times where I'm like, you know what? Never seen that before in a movie. And like, that's the thing that Jackson brings to it. Now, but then it's one of these things where it's like, you'll see something that looks amazing. And then you'd be like, why did you use CG for the ring? Like, why does the ring look so bad? It's like, there's just like this weird, like one hand is great. One hand is like kind of subpar thing going on through a lot of it.
Yeah. And the CGI is not all bad at all. Like Gollum looks amazing in this movie. Like I actually think that looks like 10 years of even improvement to that technology.
Yeah. Gollum. Yeah. Look, amazing. Like that looks like, okay, like you said, look at it originally, looked great. You can see all of the advancements right there in that one thing. But then it's like, you see this other thing, you're like, this looks like, why are you CGing? Why does the sky have to be CG behind Gandalf's head? Yep. Like, just go shoot the fucking thing outside. Like, why are you doing this? Like that kind of stuff is stuff that like just drives me, kind of insane, while watching a movie like this.
Well, I wanted to do it. Like, I wanted to compare there's an establishing shot here where they come through the cave and they end up at Rivendell, right? Yeah. And they see it from far away. There's a very, very similar shot the first time we see it in Lord of the Rings. And I just kind of wanted to look at those two things side by side so I could say, okay, this is why this one's better. And I just didn't get a chance to do it. But like, there's a visual essay. Stay tuned. I'll do that someday.
And I think Rivendell is actually one of the, like, at least the matte painting sort of vibe when they first walk in. It's got a pretty similar aesthetic to it. It's just like a lot of other things. Like, and I think like Hobbiton looks really nice. Like they obviously went back and shot stuff there, but it's just like a lot of the other things where I'm like, guys, you look at the movies you made 10 years ago. Like, these people walking through this forest, it can just be a real forest. It doesn't have to be a CG forest. I don't understand what you're doing. Like what you have the most beautiful place on earth in your backyard. And I know a lot of it's because they had to do it very fast. Like we said, they couldn't get in there and build things like they did in the other ones. I totally get that. But all we can evaluate really is what's on screen, and what's on screen, it does not live up to what came out, 10 years prior. And it's sort of just like watching The House of the Dragon now on HBO Max, and then you're like, this looks worse than Game of Thrones.
Well, that's the thing. It's not only it suffer in comparison to the original trilogy, which is pretty much perfect still, and so much of that holds up, but like I saw other like CGI big budget blockbusters from 2012 that look better than this, and like I was very surprised by that. I think I thought this was going to be just top notch in every way, even if they had to do it a little more quickly, it would be. But like, compare this, Avengers came out in 2012.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the effects in that look a lot better. I don't think there's one in this that sort of blows that out of the water.
Yeah, no. And that's the main problem with this. I will say this here, and I'll probably kind of hint at this or bring this up throughout our journey through these three movies. But I think the central sort of, let's call it original sin of this group of movies is that The Hobbit at its core is a children's book, right? It's a children's book, and it's got a lot of silly stuff in it, and it's got a lot of like, oh, our hero got bunked on the head and he fell down and they missed the battle. Like that's kind of like the vibe of The Hobbit, right? It's whimsical. It's, you know, it's got like a lot of songs in it. It's got little silly situations that happen. Its main hero is very much just like kind of along for the ride a lot of the time. And I think what happens in this is that Jackson, just as he feared he would do, goes like, okay, yeah, it's the Hobbit, but it's got to feel like the Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
And it's like, and I think those two things are constantly at war with each other, where it's like, this like really silly ass looking dwarf, I would be fine with it if it was just like a dark fantasy children's story, but because you're forcing it into this thing where like he's got to like basically stand alongside Aragorn or whatever, right. You know, in our minds, it's like these two people don't inhabit the same universe. And it's like, those two things are constantly fighting with each other.
Total problem with the movie, right? Because yes. I had never read The Hobbit, and like I know people had told me that it is kind of a, you know, it's Lord of the Rings for kids, right? And it has that more sort of, you know, juvenile sort of quality about it. But there would be a way, I think, to make that fit into this universe that this movie doesn't exactly do. Like it's kind of trying to do both things. It is very like much too closely to each other, and they don't mesh at all. So there is like, he does want to do the silliness and the whimsy, and some of my favorite scenes in this are actually that, you know,
me too.
The more cartoonish this movie gets, I think the better it is. There's some really good battle scenes here, you know, that are more serious along the lines of what's in the original trilogy. But, you know, like it kind of, it makes the silly stuff feel like unearned or unwanted or something. And it's hard to sort of square the two. And like, I'm sure it was very hard for them, like the way they had to adapt the story and the things they had to do to just sort of fit this into this. I mean, the weight of expectations and the weight of all these, you know, people like you who knew the book really well and were looking for a very straight adaptation. I understand what they were going through, but I don't know. I think they could have hit that target better through a lot of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes it so these things where, like you said, you're like, I'm having trouble, and I like mixed tone movies a lot of times. I'm a big proponent of them. Yeah. Yes, exactly. But in this, it's like, what am I supposed to like take as the thing right now? Like, is the silliness the thing, or is the really dark stuff the thing? Like, what am I taking out of this?
Because it takes a lot of the tension out of the movie too, right? Yeah. Like if this is just a kid's movie, you know, nobody's going to get hurt. And so a lot of the stuff with the dwarves, it's like, well, you know, we're not killing a dwarf here. Whereas in the original trilogy, you know, we lose some pretty amazing characters pretty early on in those movies. So yeah, and and that would be fine if that was all it was. It's like he wants to have the gravitas of those movies, but also the goofiness of this one as well. Like, and you know, like this one's supposed to make you cry a few times. I don't think it quite hits that height because, you know, we got them throwing plates at each other, which is one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Great scene. And this is what I mean. Like back in the day, people were like, oh, so many songs, people throwing plates. What am I here for? And I'm like, that's what you're supposed to be here for.
That is so much fun. Yeah, I love that. I'm looking forward to talking about that. It's like my two favorite scenes of this are back to back right there.
Yeah. And I think you can definitely see like the weight of like, and I think it's partly not just Jackson being like, I don't think he's like, I need it to be dark. I think he's like, how am I supposed to make this movie if it doesn't share the DNA of the three movies everybody loves? And I think that's why, rightfully at first, he was like, I shouldn't be the one who directs this. It should be somebody else, because they won't be worried about that. They'll be thinking, like, how can I make my movie? And especially when you pick somebody like Del Toro, you're not picking somebody who's going to say, yeah, Pete, I'll do whatever you want. Like, you're picking somebody who's like going to do a thing, right? And I think that's really where the main like problem crops up here. And then as we get into the other movies, we'll get into more of like the stuff that he goes into even more, where he's like, no, but let's put a little bit more Lord of the Rings in here. And it's like, Pete, like just like back it off a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like this is the one that does it the least. And
it definitely does it the least.
That makes it probably the best of the three.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I remember loving the middle one a lot, and I thought it was a really fun adventure movie.
And so I think I might just be kind of looking back at it, like I was saying, you know, over time these movies have kind of lost some juice. But
yeah, if we watch the third movie and I like it at all, it'll be a very big surprise for me and a welcome guest. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So the other thing, right, is like basically this was announced as two movies, and then basically right before this movie's coming out, they're like, it's three. You know, so that was the other thing happened, and even people like me, who was like, all right, because originally when they announced it as two, people were like, two, it's just one book, it's The Hobbit. I'm like, no, two's fine, because like, you know, a movie can only hold so much, and there's a bunch of stuff that happens in the book. There is this other sort of stuff that happens to fill out the story that you could definitely fill out two movies with. When they announced it was three, I was like, how in the world is this going to be 3 movies? And, we'll talk about that as we go. But so let's kick off. Let's talk about this. Let's start with Martin Freeman. I mean, we just start with Martin Freeman, right? Which is like, he's cast as Bilbo Baggins in this. Obviously, Ian Holm plays him in the original trilogy, plays him again here at the beginning. We get a opening thing that is like basically kind of the 15 minutes before Fellowship starts, essentially, where he's beginning to write his book, and Frodo's about to run off and go meet Gandalf in the field or whatever.
I love these scenes so much, but I think it's very hard for the movie to live up to that, right? Because you see this right away. You're seeing your old familiar friends from that original trilogy. It's got that Howard Shore score. They're in the same location. The home looks exactly the same. The Shire looks exactly the same. And I remember sitting in the theater like, oh, we're back. We're back, baby. It's another Lord of the Rings movie. Here we go. Like, I kind of thought all the other stuff I saw was like, oh, they were just preventing us from seeing this and having it dawn on us. Like, they wanted it to be a surprise that like, nope, we're just right back where we were.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't last long, but like, it's how do you not have a great feeling about this movie from that first, about 10 minutes or so? Maybe
a little less than 10 minutes, but around that. And I would say just as we're talking about this opening section, I think basically everything from the moment that we start the movie till the moment basically Bilbo runs down the path is all great. Like I think it does a great job of establishing who this Bilbo is, like reestablishing who he is as a younger person. I think the reintroduction of Gandalf is good. I think all that stuff really works really well. I think even like the sort of, Lord of the Rings-esque like preamble that they do to set up what the thing is, also good. I think all that stuff really works. So as we get into this, Martin Freeman takes over. I think Freeman is really good in this.
He's wonderful. Yeah.
And he has moments too where, like, you talk about the movie trying to make you cry and it doesn't. It never made me cry, but I will say, like, he hit the moments where he has like kind of his big moments, I think really work, and I think come the closest to like evoking that emotion that they really want you to feel are his times. But we get this, introductory scene with Gandalf, and we're kind of back into it. And it's so funny because I remember back in 2012 being like, oh, it just feels like not right. And then watching it this time, I'm like, no, it feels great. Like McKellen's doing a great job. Freeman's doing great. I think it does a great job. At this point, they have the tone going. They have like this like kind of like whimsical, like silly tone happening,
and it feels like the Shire stuff in the original in Fellowship, and it's like okay, it's the exact same thing. Like we're just back, we're telling a new story in that world, and I really liked that about it.
Yeah, and I like this, setting up this like who Bilbo is, who his sort of like family is. He knew Gandalf when he was young. I like setting all that stuff up, and this idea of sort of setting this idea, which they have to do, because it's a movie. That, Bilbo has to have some sort of like internal journey that he goes on, right? And the idea they're setting up, right, is that he was this adventurous, sort of very adventurous for a hobbit young man who has kind of grown into this person who's kind of stuck, who just wants to like do the same thing every day and is like, has kind of lost what was in him when he was, younger or whatever. And I think that's a fine setup for his character. What were you saying, Nick?
It's relatable.
It's definitely relatable, for sure. It's definitely very relatable. Though it's also relatable. He's like, I miss my armchair. I miss my books. Like, I get it, man.
Boy, he really sells those. We'll talk about them as we go through this. Yeah, I really, just on Martin Freeman, he's so good in this movie. I wasn't that familiar with him. I'd seen a couple episodes of Sherlock. Mm-hmm. But, to me, he was great on that show. But that was like Benedict Cumberbatch's show. We'll get to him next movie, I think.
When we get to the next movie, yeah, we will.
But yeah, I could recognize his face. I didn't know much about him. I think he's so good in this.
Yes.
He's not doing exactly Ian Holm, which is nice.
No, he's not.
There's no reason to, and he kind of makes it his own. I really like that about it.
Yeah. Yeah, he obviously Sherlock, he's in the British version of The Office. He basically plays like the Jim part in the original version of The Office.
Oh, is it like it's as big of a part as it was in the American one?
Oh yeah, it is like that character basically. Oh, wow. He's in love with the receptionist. He's like it's like the heart of the show, basically, is his character on the British Office. And then he's in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I liked him in that. I like that movie.
Yeah, I like that movie too. He's just like a really solid, funny actor, and I was very excited.
And Most Def. Now I want to watch that again.
Yeah, it was good.
I'll bet it doesn't hold up. I liked it at the time a lot.
I liked it at the time too. Alan Rickman is the voice of the robot.
Yep, great book too.
Yeah, it's before. When did Hot Fuzz come out? Before this, Hot Fuzz came out before this. Hot Fuzz came out in 2007. He's like the when Simon Pegg has to like go through like the 3 like police department people when he's getting transferred, who are like telling him he's being transferred. He's like the first guy he talks to basically in that too. Like he shows up. He's also in Shaun of the Dead. He's like in that group of people they meet who are like their mirrors or whatever. He's like the mirror Shaun when they're
really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's been a while since
he's all over that shit.
I'd recognize him now. Yeah.
Yeah. He's he was British comedy sort of royalty at that point. What time he gets cast in this, right? Yeah, I think he's great in this, and I think he could have easily kind of been a caricature or fallen into like impression, like you were saying, and he doesn't do any of that. He really brings like a real, humanity and, groundedness to this character that I think it needs, especially in these opening scenes where everything is so heightened and so silly. Oh, he's also in Love Actually. He's the couple that's like the sex doubles, like the body doubles for the actors. He like falls in love. Do you ever see Love Actually?
I have not.
Oh, okay. All right. So he's in that movie as well. But he's also very funny in that. And so then very quickly we get the dwarves showing up at the house, basically. Gandalf leaves a little mark on his door, essentially, and all of these 13 dwarves and Gandalf show up at his house, right? And when we were talking about Lord of the Rings, we talked about how one of the things I loved about it, right, and the Jackson was very specific about, was like they wanted me to get rid of characters in Lord of the Rings, and I refused to do it. They were like, make Merry and Pippin one character, or whatever, and he refused to do it. Obviously, he's not going to do it here, because that's his thing, right? He's going to do the 13 dwarves because that's what everybody who loves the book wants to see. I think I want to get your take on having that many characters introduced like that, so fast in that way.
Yeah, it's too many. It's one of my problems with the movie, and I understand that, I respect the integrity of keeping all those characters, but it's like, even over movies that are this long, even though you're planning on doing it at least as 2 movies and then they decided to do it as 3, like, you're never going to get to know all of them to the extent that you want to. And the original trilogy did such a good job with the Fellowship, right? The ones that we got close to and the ones that were kind of recurring through all 3 of them. And like, I'm wanting that to happen here, but I know even just from this one, there's no way that can ever happen. So in that scene when they all just kind of start showing up at the house one after another, which is a really, really fun scene, like I'm enjoying it for just the, the physical comedy. It's like a French farce kind of thing. It's doors slamming and plates getting thrown. I really enjoy that. But like also I'm trying to be like, okay, which one is which and what's this one's personality trait? And like they all kind of look similar. I mean, I think they do a good job of differentiating, the ones that are more sort of conventionally handsome and the ones that are kind of chubby and silly looking. But still, even like there's multiple versions of all of those things. Their names are all, and I know this is from Tolkien, so it's nobody's fault. They're all very similar. So it's so hard to keep track. It's so hard to get invested. I think it's one of the things that really makes the movie suffer. However, I enjoy, those scenes like toward the end where they're all just like running away from something and that big group of them. I think that's a lot of fun because we do, we know them more than we'd know like supporting characters in other movies that are just like along the ride with the hero. But also, we don't know them well enough to get like fully invested in their story the way we do with Gimli in the original and Legolas. And, we talked about that, right? They don't have, it was very striking to me watching that again this time, how little screen time those guys have. Like, there's so much other stuff and we're in so many other places and we're away from them for so long. It's when you add it up, it's kind of a low number of minutes they're on screen, but like they have this presence that kind of hangs over everything. So it's like they're there the whole time anyway. And there's no character like that in this movie.
No, I mean, the thing is like even the Fellowship at its most full is less people than this movie, starts out with basically. Yeah. So, they do all of this like very similar names. Like I used to obviously know them all because we did the thing. I don't think I know them all anymore. But it's like,
well, you sent me the like the playbill from that show, and I'm looking down the list. I was like, oh, they did all the dwarves.
Oh, we did all the dwarves: Fili, Kili, Oin, Gloin, Nori, Dori, Balin, and Dwalin. Bomber and Biffer.
Biffer and both.
Biffer and Bofer. Thorin, and then there is obviously Gandalf and Bilbo, and I think I'm missing one dwarf, I think. But
you're just one dwarf short.
I'm one dwarf short. But the problem is, like,
their names only get mentioned in this scene, right?
That's
like,
right.
And very rarely. I mean, I was looking at the cast list of this, and I'm like, wait a minute, which one was that? And like, I had to look at the guy's face. So I do. It's a problem. You know, this is like the Dirty Dozen gets away with that, but this I don't think can.
Well, because we talked about in Lord of the Rings, but each of those characters, to make up for their lack of screen time, have a thing for them, right? It's like, you know, they have a fighting style that's unique. They have a personality that's unique, whatever it is. And there's just too many characters here who don't. The problem is they don't have anything to do other than be like, we're walking, you know, and this is the thing that is always the problem. And when we went to the stage show, it's like, damn, there's a lot of freaking just walking from place to place in this where they just walk. And then, you know, and the thing is, like, again, this is part of the reason it's a children's book. It's like, in children's book, it's like, yeah, of course you've got goofy dwarves who all have rhyming names who, like, there's the fat one who eats too much, and there's this one who does this, and there's the young one who does this, you know, and that's hard to do in something like this. The other thing I will say is I think it's a little bit lame that they were like, yes, a lot of these dwarves look sort of Gimli-like, but the dwarf that is the one that is their leader is just a hot dude. Like, that is like what they're doing.
He's like little Aragorn.
He's little Aragorn. And like, I'm like, come on, like, you have a little bit more guts than that when you're doing this, you know? They have him, and then they have the other hot dwarf, the hot young one, who's going to end up like romancing Evangeline Lilly or whatever in the next movie or whatever it is. But like, that's, you know, so you have to pick, right? You have to pick, like, we've got Thorin obviously has a character. He is an important character. He will be given most of the screen time and stuff to do. You've got Balin or Dwalin, I can't remember which one, what the old one is. You've got him who also has like a thing, right? And then you've got Keeley, who is the young one, the young hot one. And then you've got the one with the kind of weird hat thing who is like, who has more screen time. He's a very good scene.
Yeah. I always liked him just because I could always remember him. I knew who he was. And
absolutely. And then the other ones,
it might just be the hat.
The other ones, they just kind of are there to be like, what happened? Huh? No. Like, that's what they're all there for, right? Which is fine in like a silly kids movie, but starts to fall apart when you're supposed to care about whether they live or die or what's happening. Did they all get out of the mine? Did they all whatever? It all just sort of like doesn't work.
Like, there is a moment when they escape from the orc caves at the end, and Gandalf is like taking a head count of everyone, and it's like, oh, right, now like he's reminding me, oh, that's how many there are, and that's what their names are, and you know, where's Bilbo? Like, of course you're gonna forget that Bilbo's around because there's too many of them.
There's too many of them. But I love the opening scene with the dinner plates and everything, and I love that they sing the song.
The song is so funny. It's so enjoyable. Like, this very cartoonish sequence, but I do think the film earns it in that moment. And like all the stuff, I think that the stuff that takes place in Bilbo's house is so good. And again, like, my favorite scene, I don't know if we're quite there yet, the Misty Mountain song.
Yeah, we're basically there. I mean, it's, you know, all there is a lot of discussion about, like, you know, what their kind of plan is. They're going back, you know, they set up at the beginning that Thorin is like the grandson of this king that like lost his place. They got driven out by a dragon and orcs or, you know, whatever, and they had to leave their home, and they've been sort of, you know, basically nomads for many years at this point. You know, they tried to retake Moria, and that also failed. And basically Thorin is like the last of his, you know, these group of people, the last really of the people from Erebor, the Lonely Mountain, which they're trying to get back to.
Very Aragorn-y story.
Very Aragorn story, but also, again, one of the things I think you run into this problem by taking it from being like a kid's story to trying to make it this feel like Lord of the Rings, where Lord of the Rings is like, we have to take this weapon of death and destroy it or the world's going to end. And this one's like, I want my home back with all the gold and the shiny rock. Like, that is what he wants, and it's just less impactful. The only time I think the impact of it really comes into focus is at the end when Bilbo has his little speech to them.
I was just going to say, like, it does, at least the movie tries to sell that idea, though, and I think Martin Freeman does a huge service to it in actually making that, like, you know, because I was thinking that the entire time, right? It had been a while since I'd seen it. It's like, okay, this is not a world-ending thing. This is just like, you know, it's not affecting, like, Smaug has no real bearing on anyone but these characters and, their families. And
they try to make it a little bit bigger with in the middle of the movie.
Dark forces are always massing in this world.
Yeah.
It's again, just feels very much like the original trilogy in that way, and not in a good way. Like, it's, we know, although when Saruman shows up, that's a lot of fun, I think.
I mean more like his, like, I'm worried about Smaug because he's so powerful and he serves no one. And what if the enemy finds him or whatever? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
but I mean,
that's one of the moments you're like,
I
don't
buy that, but I do buy the Bilbo monologue, toward the end there where it's, why is home so meaningful? Why is that so important? Why do we need to, basically risk our lives on this suicide mission to get it back?
Yeah. And I wonder too if, like, because they talked about the script didn't come together very easily. And even when they started shooting, they basically didn't even have, like, the script fully done, and they were kind of going into it being like, we're shooting today and we don't know what we're shooting tomorrow, like that kind of vibe.
They're shooting action scenes without storyboards. I mean, it's a troubled production, like, in every way.
Yes.
This could have been so bad.
It's true, but I wonder if they stumbled across that. Sorry, I don't want to get your point. They stumbled across that core of the movie late. That, like, idea of, like, how do we make this journey work?
And kind of built it back in.
It kind of built it back in, you know what I mean? But sorry, what were you saying about how the movie could have gone?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, Peter Jackson has to be a pretty stellar filmmaker to be able to do, I mean, we both think this is a good movie, right?
Totally.
And I think we're both, a little more critical than some about stuff like this. And the fact that we can still say that it's a good movie says, he did something right.
He did definitely do something right,
like,
for sure.
There's just genuine talent. And I think care for the property also. I mean, the one thing that I knew with him going into it, that, like, he's taken it upon himself to kind of steward this, and like, bringing in Del Toro, I think, was a great idea on his part. It was his idea, right? He always wanted someone to treat this with care, and if it couldn't be him, well, then it's going to be me. And like, I do like that about it.
Yeah, I will say this. All of our criticisms of it, there's a lot of care and love that goes into this. There was thousands of dedicated artists and people who really gave a shit.
This could have easily been a cheap cash grab kind of movie. Like, let's just build on this franchise that made a shit ton of money and brought in all these people like me who really didn't have any connection with it before. Yeah. And it never, like, there's not a frame in this that feels like that, right?
No,
like,
definitely not.
Someone wanted this to be good and, like, really wanted to do right by it and, do right by those fans, I guess.
Wrong choices made at times, some miscalculations for sure, but just
but
like we talked about,
wrong choices made in the name of greed or just pandering.
Yes, exactly. This is that not at all. So we get, we talk about the dinner scene. We get I think the pretty fun scene, right, where Bilbo is sort of, like, getting interested a little bit in what's going on and, like, looking at the map and sort of, like, I like that scene where they're like, he's asking who Smaug is, and he's like, he's a drake from the whatever, and he's like, I know what a dragon is. Thank you very much. Like, I like the interaction with them, like, just showing Bilbo's not, like, some, like, idiot, right? They're trying to establish this stuff about him. He has some interest. And then
also, like, they bring him in because he's a burglar, and I like that scene too. Like, he's a little bit of a rascal, Bilbo is.
Absolutely,
and, up to this point, he seems like just so earnest and forthright, but it's like, no, we're bringing you along because you're good at sneaking into stuff.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, Gandalf's like, look, hobbits real good. They can sneak. You can't hear them. Dragons know what they smell like. I like all that's, like, the very, like, the tactical stuff about that part.
Yeah.
And then, we get the song, right? We get the song the dwarves sing.
This was the moment when I was sitting in the theater the first time I saw this. I was like, I really liked the intro stuff, like the flash forward at the beginning. But this strikes a tone that really kind of reminded me of the stuff I love the most in the original trilogy. It's just very solemn. It's taking this, kind of goofy thing, this song about the quest they're about to go on, and it just invests it with so much gravity. It's shot like a religious hymn. These, like, beautiful camera movements, these, like, slow dolly shots, like, through Bilbo's house, and the lighting is just perfect. And, like, this is the moment where the movie looks far and away the best. There's nothing else in this movie that comes close to this visually. You and I were talking about the style of this, by the way, and how the lighting, just doesn't look as beautiful and classical and traditional as the original trilogy, and a lot of that had to do with the higher frame rate. They're shooting on Red Epic cameras. They're shooting in 5K in 2012, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's very impressive. Yeah, they don't.
Not anymore,
a lot of movies aren't even, but some movies even now are even shot.
Yeah, sure.
5K. And these cameras are very new, and there's even stuff on the documentary where they're like, we got these cameras in, and we had, like, a couple of weeks to basically learn how to use them before production started. Like that's how
this
quick
movie
things went.
Never looks terrible, right?
No,
like there's nothing
no.
in this, even the worst special effects, even the scenes that you could tell they didn't quite have the biggest, the best and clearest storyboard, the clearest plan for them. They still look great. Yeah. Just not as great as the original, and we can't not compare it to that.
You can't.
But this scene absolutely does. Like, this is the one where if you just, like, chopped this right out, dropped it somewhere in the original trilogy, it would hold up with the best scenes in that one. And, when I saw this, I was like, okay, we're doing all this again, and this new trilogy, there's going to be scenes like this. They're going to just, pepper these in all over the place. Didn't end up happening. But
no.
But this gave me a lot of hope. I absolutely love the scene. I watched it 3 times when I went and saw the movie, reviewed it to talk about it on the show tonight. And yeah, it's definitely my favorite scene in the movie.
It's got, like you said, so much gravitas. It also it gives you a little bit of that feeling of like, okay, this is like, there's all this goofiness, but these are like a sad group of people who are
absolutely
longing for something that they don't have.
And they know they're about to go basically to their death.
Yeah. And I wish that there was more of stuff like this, and that Bilbo speech at the end built throughout the whole movie to give you a sense of like, okay, I care about these people's journey for some reason, right? Other than I like Middle Earth and I want to see more Middle Earth stuff. I want to see I have a reason why I'm invested in these people doing the thing that they're doing. Yeah, because even Bilbo, the problem, and again, this is a problem with basing on a children's book, is like Bilbo is just kind of like, yeah, sure, I'll go, and he just runs after them, but you don't really get a sense of like why Bilbo is there.
No,
right?
He says no the last time we see him before that.
Yeah, so it's like there's a lot of, I think, unanswered questions that, because he's framing this as a PG-13 fantasy epic, you want the answers to that you necessarily wouldn't need the answers to if it was a different style of movie, and I think they didn't really solve, like you said, those problems in the script. And I think maybe if they had more time, maybe if they, whatever it was, they could have gotten there, but I don't think they just quite got there. And I think that is like the main thing, other than the visuals, that is sort of like holding the movie back in many ways.
And just the friendship, the fellowship, that side of the original trilogy is so good, right? There's a lot of moments where we're just kind of hanging out with them by the fire and like seeing them get to know each other. These characters obviously already do, but it's like, I'd love a little bit more of that banter, that back and forth there. Like after this, like once Bilbo is off on the road, it's just like incident and peril. It's like one thing after another where it's like, there's not a moment. Like I agree with you about the pacing. I think it's really good in some sense that this movie never gets boring, and I think it easily could, but like I kind of want it to slow down a little more once in a while, and like give these characters some time to just like breathe it in a little bit and give us a chance to get to know them a little bit better.
And it leads you to this thing where it's like, in Fellowship, you see them like training the hobbits to fight, right? And in this, it's like, why aren't you training Bilbo to fight? Like, you're just going to be and it's, you just leads you to like, everyone's angry at him for not knowing how to fight.
With Sean Bean in the original, it's like, it's such a great character moment. It's such a cool looking scene. They're up on the mountain there. Like, you don't really get anything like that here. I mean,
Bilbo has no friend like Sam to like
he's
have like an emotional
outsider
connection
in this world, and we don't even get to really see him kind of insinuate himself the way we want to. Like, what of note really happens in this story until basically the end of it?
In this movie, you mean? Like,
they're on this kind of linear trajectory. They go from place to place. They're making their way toward, they're going back to Erebor or whatever. Gandalf is there. They get hung up in Rivendell for a while when Saruman should. But like, are there any moments that couldn't be easily sort of elided over in like the next hour and a half of the movie? I don't know if there is.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a very episodic style story, right? It's very much like you said. It's like, what's the little adventure they're getting, a little pocket adventure they're going to get into, that then they walk to the next pocket adventure, and that's kind of what it is. Like, even look at it, like you got the trolls sequence, right? And then you've got like the stone giants sequence, and then you've got like the
and they're all fun.
They're all fun.
It's not like I don't like any of them, and like I want to lose. I don't think this movie's over long, and I enjoy them all, and like I do think it gives the movie at least that epic sort of length about it. But like, if one of those things didn't happen,
I think it would be fine.
How much is it progressing the story? How much is it really progressing the characters? Not much.
Not much. And I think we could have done, like you said, more character scenes between people, getting to know them. A nice scene between Thorin and Bilbo, a nice scene between whoever and whoever. but there just doesn't exist that stuff.
And yet the Thorin and Bilbo thing at the end, even though it hasn't really, I don't know if the movie's earned it, but like that got me pretty close to
me too.
Shedding a tear almost.
Yeah, I mean it's good acting. And we want to see that scene, right? But I feel like because you're not given much about like, Thorin especially, right? And this idea of like, you get like a line like, oh, they betrayed me. And so you won't take help from anyone on this journey that you're trying to do. You just seem like an asshole most of the time. You don't seem like, why would people follow you?
You're just racist against elves, bro.
Yeah. And any other people around you. Like, why? Like, come on. And I think that because you don't get time with him, you're not able to sort of glean like, okay, I understand where he's coming from. I understand his mission. And like, a nice scene by the fire where he's sort of like showing a little vulnerability or something about why it's so important for him to get back to this place could have done a lot to, help you push through it, other
and the
than some fun
template for
scenes.
That, it wouldn't be hard to find because it's Aragorn in the original trilogy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just do something like that.
Yeah.
Beautifully developed character.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, Jackson is solving for another problem that he still did, sort of do in Lord of the Rings, which is give some sort of physical embodiment, some character embodiment to the opposing force that is like physically in the space. And so he kind of creates this character of Azog or whatever, who's like sort of in the book as like the head orc or whatever, but he's not like a named character.
They don't have the history that they have.
They don't have the same history. There's not like, this flashback to this Moria battle where he kills his dad or whatever. That's not really part of it. And maybe there's some like text for it in some Tolkien like appendices or something. So I don't want to say it for definite, and I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. I do think there's something wrong with the fact that the character looks terrible. Like the CG on it it's some of the worst CG in the movie, only because it's supposed to be this character you're supposed to like, you have to look at all the time, who's supposed to feel like he's a physical threat, but he looks like a cartoon character. And it sucks.
This is a year or two before the video game, before, what's it called? Shadows of Mordor or
it's
whatever?
About 2 years before Shadow of Mordor, yeah.
Like, there's orcs in that game that look so much better than this one that's in the movie.
There's
like,
orcs in this movie that look better than that
yeah.
one, And it's like, dude, like, again, look back at the movie you made 10 years ago. If it just looked like that head Uruk-hai again, we would have been good. Like, there's so much great design in those movies. We talked so long about the costumes and makeup in those movies. Like, I understand you have the time, but you could have done a prosthetic for this or done some sort of like hybrid prosthetic CG thing if you wanted to. I understand
even just for this one character. Yeah, I agree.
Too important. It's too important a character. If you want it to be the crux of like your quote unquote hero's journey, it cannot look like a video game character. It looks like a video game character stuck into, acting against real people. And he's also riding a video game wolf, so it's like all those things together, just really sells the movie short, I think, especially that character.
Did you play that game, by the way?
Yeah, I love that game.
I love that game too, and I remember, how you make enemies among the orcs. Like,
the Nemesis system. Yep.
Yeah, the Nemesis, which I loved. I had never seen that before at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember they do these cutaways to that character, like the next time you ran into him, and I was like, I am legitimately scared right now.
Yeah.
Like, that's how well done that was, and that's how poorly done this is. Because, like, I remember, they all had, like, these very distinctive kind of, not personalities, but, like, they had a distinctive look about them. And, you'd be just exploring a castle or something like, holy shit, there he is, right?
Yeah.
And then you'd get that, like, dramatic cut scene of him. And, like, I want something like that in this movie.
Yeah, and his name would be, like, Skullgog the Defiler or whatever,
Yeah, like it really, it was a real emotional investment in a game, I remember, because I was genuinely scared of running into that same, or sometimes like I want to run into him because I want to kill that bastard.
You're like, I got you son of a bitch.
Kind of later on when I like leveled up. Yeah,
exactly.
And I think I was more emotionally invested in that a lot of times than I was in this movie, which is
it's also the personalities thing too. In the original trilogy, they've got all of these personalities, and they have all like they've got the meat's back on the menu, and the weird like fresh like voices, and this guy is just like generic like bad guy number 7, and that's the problem. And he's not even surrounded by guys who are just like little freaks and weirdos, like. And I think that's where it feels the least Jackson.
The one little orc in the chair.
Yeah.
The little messenger guy. I liked him.
Yeah. But that's the thing, you little personality bitch. You're like, why isn't this all over the place? when it was all over the place last time. And again, you can't help but compare it. He's making movies in that universe with that style. He's trying to definitely remind you of it. So you're gonna think about it, right? So yeah, I think that's a big problem with the movie. And every time he shows up, I'm like, I just like don't care. I don't care about you. You don't look real. Like I just whatever, man. Like I'm just not there for it. But I will say this. I'm very curious how you feel about this stuff. So we get the great Sylvester McCoy shows up as Radagast the Brown, who is very much hinted in the Hobbit book. This is where some of the stuff I love that he does, which is that in the Hobbit book, Gandalf basically disappears for like 100 pages. It's like, I got important shit to do in this forest with my buddy Radagast, right? And so in this, they're like, okay, let's like fill in what he's doing. Because like, you know, I think the whole purpose in the book was just like, Tolkien was like, Gandalf's too powerful. The story for a little while, you know, so these guys can do their own thing. But we get some cool stuff filled in here with it. And I really liked seeing like this other type of wizard. I like that he's just like a weird. Like,
I love Radagast. Yeah, I liked him the first time. Yeah, I was not expecting him because I hadn't read the book, and I was like, okay, this is a little fun detour we're doing here.
Yeah.
And I agree with you also, like the way there's some dialogue in this where he kind of establishes the different wizards, right? And, you know, we know him, we know Saruman, we know there's others. And like, yeah, this guy was just one of them. And he's this kind of tree-hugging hippie wizard. And like, I love that idea. I love that character. The bunny rabbits are a lot of fun. They don't look great, but that's the rabbit-drawn wagon I really like a lot. I don't mind this.
No, this is the time where I think he most gets the balance of the silly whimsical and the more sort of like serious stuff.
Agreed. I love when Radagast runs into some trouble and sees the necromancer and all that stuff. Like that's it reminds me of the Frighteners.
It's a Frighteners, or it feels like, you know, Secretive Nymph or something that where it's like, let's take something that's like a little bit whimsical and silly and butt it up against something that's kind of dark and scary. And that's the most sort of like where I think, right, Del Toro would have been so good at this. Because he's so good at that kind of stuff, you know, like
it could have been very Hellboy 2.
Yeah, or like Pan's Labyrinth-esque, you know what I mean? Like this like idea of like slamming those two things together. I think this is the part where it does it, you know, the best. And I really like that scene where he goes to the fortress, and I like how kind of creepy it is. That feels so Jackson. It's got the style back. The camera's moving all weird. You know, we've got really weird close-ups of spiders crawling up the like shack that he's in when he's like extracting the poison or whatever from the little hedgehog guy that he saves. You know, I like that he has like fungus growing on his face, like mushroom fungus growing on his face. Like all that stuff a lot, you know. But again, we have to smash together with like this, like, okay, then he shows up to talk to Gandalf, which is great. I like that he talks to Gandalf. But then we have to get like a, you know, orc runaway scene, you know, or whatever. And it's like, okay, we got to spend time like with the dwarves just like running across a couple hills back and forth behind rocks being like, no, don't go this way. No, don't go this way. And I'm like, what is this scene that I'm watching right now? This so much feels like we don't have time to do another pass at this section.
Yeah.
We just got to go shoot it. Like, that's what it feels like to me. You know, like
I do. The one thing I'll say about that, I agree. It kind of slows down the pacing. It drags the movie a little bit. But those are all real locations. You know, we're back in New Zealand. We're up in the mountains, and you do kind of like one of the reasons you go see these movies, or one of the appeals and pleasures of these movies, is just that wonderful scenery, and we don't get as much of that here. So like, this is what, you know, the shots of the characters walking on the top of a mountain, and it's just this crane shot. Like, there's a bunch of those in here, and of course, you like that. You need that as much as you need anything else in this trilogy, and he doesn't disappoint with that.
No, I mean, especially when after they leave Rivendell, like there is like 10 shots in a row. I'm like, where has this been the entire movie?
Yeah.
But because I think like have Radagast like chase them, like lead them away, and then you guys slip away or something. It's just like there's too much of the scene of them just like running around a rock until
Agreed.
Until they end up just getting caught anyway and having to go, like, you know, Gandalf kind of leads them into this passageway, and that's when we get to Rivendell, right? He's kind of like tricking Thorin into going to Rivendell because Thorin doesn't want to go, right?
I also, you know, it's a really small thing, but yeah, they hide in this cave. They go down this little slidey slide to get in there. Like, it's very goofy, and, you know, right in the middle of this Lord of the Rings action scene, and it's like, we're all going to slide down and fall on our butts at the bottom. And like, it doesn't really work there. And it's too easy. They're like right there. Like those orcs
what are we going to do?
just look down this giant hole in the ground where clearly there's people in there.
Yeah.
Not great. Not the best choreographed scene, not the best looking scene.
No. Again, this is the thing where it's like...
The slide looked fun, though.
The slide looked fun. One of the things that I think is the least valued but the most important in filmmaking is the ability to block scenes appropriately. And people don't really think about it, right? They just think like they can tell when it's not working or they can tell when it's bad. Like when in the Obi-Wan show where little Leia's running away from a baby running, like a little girl running away from people trying to kidnap her. And she's a little girl running as fast as a little girl can run. And you can clearly see the guy behind her not running as his fastest because the scene dictates he can't catch her, right? That's poor blocking, right? You can stage that in a way where you don't see that, where it doesn't work like that. You know, the great filmmakers are almost all universally great at blocking, right? They are great. Like, think of someone like Fincher or Spielberg. These are people are just like savants at blocking a scene to extract exactly the feeling that they want to get out of that scene.
Yeah.
And if people don't know what blocking means to be where your actors are standing and where they go, basically, in a scene.
Right.
So that's basically all it is. This scene is terribly blocked. Like you said, like the spatialness of it is bad. Whenever you're watching a movie and you feel like, I don't feel like they would have gotten away there, or I feel like they would have died if they had fallen that way, or I feel like that's bad blocking, right? They're just not blocking the scene properly, and that's what's happening here.
It's blocking. It's also the way of showing it, right? It's the angles you use. It's the subject camera distance you use. Like if you shoot it in a certain way, there's even that. I didn't see the Obi-Wan show because why would I? But you know, there's probably a way to show that scene. You know, you do it in a.
But that's what I mean. Like you can block it to the camera angles that you have, so it works appropriately, right? And this is just it's not done well here. And again, a lot of that, I believe you can probably chalk up to time. It's like, we don't have time to sit here and block out this scene.
Well, he said it. They went into it without a script and without storyboards. Yeah. And usually you get a way worse result than this. I mean, it's not the worst action scene I've ever seen.
No, it's not, but it just feels pointless.
Agreed. Yeah.
You know, we get to Rivendell next, and I will tell you, I really like the scene between our boys and girls from the original trilogy. Like, Elrond, Gandalf, Galadriel, and Saruman all sitting around that table talking or whatever.
I like all this stuff a lot.
Really good scene. And I really like, again, this is the part where it's like, okay, I get it, right? And again, this is Tolkien accurate. This is happening in the Hobbit. This Dol Guldur stuff is happening. This idea of like, this is where Sauron starts to take back hold and become powerful again. I love the scene between all of them. I love that, you know, Galadriel is like, no, I get it. Like, I know, I'm the one who knows. Like, I got you. Don't worry about it.
Well, I like the Saruman stuff too a lot.
Yeah. Oh, I like
because you know, that's the one time, like, this movie is trying to hint at that like growing darkness in the world that I think the original trilogy does so well. And I think, you know, a lot of that is because we know him and we know where this is all going. But also, it's Christopher Lee kind of doing the Christopher Lee thing he does so well, and you know, that real, genuine adult sort of evil that this movie sometimes feels like it's missing.
Yeah.
You really get it in this scene, and like these, you know, kind of political discussions they're having while the dwarves are just, you know, having a funny dinner scene again.
Yeah.
Kind of like even the contrast I like there a lot too. Like I think all these scenes are really good. Like this is this movie at its best.
I agree.
You know, this is another one of those moments where like you really can see that they tried here.
And I will say, I don't know why, but when Cate Blanchett said the Witch King of Agmar or whatever, however she said it tickled my brain in the best possible way. I was like, I am obsessed with the way you said this phrase.
She's a major asset to the original movies and this one certainly too.
But yeah, it's just great. It's like, here's just four great actors. Just put them in a room together and have them talk and say some good words. And it's like, okay, great. Like, that's awesome. And Lee still has like, I mean, I don't know when he died. It's got to be pretty close to when he died, right?
Yeah. So they shot most of this in New Zealand. They actually went back to England. I think Pinewood, you know, the big studio there. They did these scenes there so he wouldn't have to travel. They do feel a little bit stage bound in ways that other parts of this don't. But, you know, if that's the trade-off, like either do it that way or not use Christopher Lee, I say you go for Christopher Lee.
And he doesn't feel like he's sleepwalking through it. He's giving a performance in it, which I think is great.
Genuinely menacing, and he's not really supposed to be. Like, we're not supposed to know yet, but you know, the way he plays this is perfect.
And there is this, and I think it's in this scene or it's close to this scene. I love this one like line by Gandalf where they ask about why he brought the Hobbit with him or whatever. And he says that thing, it's perhaps because I'm afraid and he gives me courage.
Yeah.
And it's like, there are just certain times where it's like, that's the whole thing. Like, that's what it's all about. Gandalf brought him along because he brings something to the table that he knows is missing from what's going on. Right. And it's the same reason he's been like drawn to these people that like everyone else like, why do you hang out with these little like stoners all the time? And that's another thing too. Saruman, very anti-drug. He makes fun of Gandalf for smoking weed in the first movie, and he's all up in Radagast's business because he takes mushrooms or whatever in this one. He's very anti-drug.
The drug stuff in these movies are so unsubtle, and which I enjoy, but also Radagast, he's tripping balls out there on the floor.
He is. He's definitely tripping balls for sure. And I think Hugo Weaving's great in it too. And it's one of those things too where, usually when they bring people back for movies like this, like after the original movie and it's been some years, it's always looking like, okay, they've got like some sort of like Vaseline on their face to make them look like they're younger. But like in this, I don't feel like you don't really see that at all. Like even like, I think the most you see it is like Ian Holm at the very beginning, but even that, it's not that bad. Like Hugo Weaving looks great here. Yep. They let Blanchett look 10 years older, even though she's like an immortal elf, which I appreciate. They didn't try to like make her look like she was, 10 years younger or whatever.
She's always pretty ethereal anyway. So
she is, but sometimes
timeless.
These people don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're just like, oh no, we'll try to make them look younger, and they look insane, So I'm happy they didn't do that. But yeah, I like that stuff. I like how they seed the bigger world stuff in there. And I think it's done well, and it doesn't feel like, what becomes the problem with almost all major franchise filmmaking, especially stuff that's dealing with like a prequel, sequel, whatever, in the stick a chapter in the middle things, is they all feel like they've got an elbow out and they're like, elbowing the audience going, huh? Remember? Yep. And they don't.
No, this feels like part of that story, part of that world.
Yeah. There are times in this movie where you do feel that. There are different times where you feel like,
franchise building there for sure, but not here.
Yeah.
I also because they knew they were going to finish this story in a certain way, like they're not setting up stuff here that like you, with the Marvel movies. That's why I kind of gave up on the Marvel movies, right? Like there's all these things that are implied and set up, and these end credit sequences and stuff, and it's like you may never get to see that, so why are you teasing that now? This is kind of doing that, but we know those movies are going to exist, so we'll get to see the payoff to everything we have here. And even if we don't, we know exactly what the Saruman story is going to be because we saw it's a good prequel in that way also. Mm-hmm. So, these don't feel like cheap. They don't feel unearned. They don't feel like they're, just trying to get our appetites whetted for something that we're just maybe never going to get.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Don't worry. We'll call out when I feel like that stuff is happening in these, but like this is not one of those
not here.
Moments for sure. This movie is pretty much devoid of it other than a couple of moments. Like I don't like that early Bilbo scene where they do the Gandalf like getting big and that gets dark around him thing when he like raises his voice. I'm like, you don't have to do that. Like, you don't have to just repeat the thing you did in the other one, And this is so much less important than when he does it in the Fellowship of the Ring, which is like, I want to stop the Ring of Power from getting away. Like, this is like, stop talking so much.
Feels a little petty here, yeah.
It feels very petty.
Well, even wizards can be that way sometimes.
But again, I do love the look. Again, McKellen's so good. When, he's like mentally talking to Galadriel and she's like, you let them, they're leaving, you knew. And that look he gives her, I'm like, yeah, there we go. That's the magic.
Immediately cut to them like running away. Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
that's the magic look right there. And we get our very fellowship like walk with the whole group leaving Rivendell. It's like, it's almost like he's like repeating that, like, build of them all walking across like many vistas, right? While a big sweeping score comes in.
Yeah. I don't mind it.
No, I don't mind it either.
It's one of those things that like I see what you're doing here. Like you can kind of see the wheels turning, but also I love that so much. I'm good with it. Yeah,
absolutely. It's one of those things that's like when Star Wars is really good, that idea of like things rhyming that George Lucas always says, right? That they rhyme. Like, when those things work, they work really well and they elicit a reaction, which I love. It's good here. And like the stone giant thing, which I completely forgotten that it was even
Me too.
I was like, what's going on? And then I was like, oh, right.
Yep.
Looks cool, but again, one thing is like, do we need this? Like, nothing changes other than Thorin has to like pick Bilbo up and help him, and then he's like furious at him that he had to help him. I'm like, in what world is anyone prepared for?
I don't buy the blocking of that at all.
No, me neither.
When he's hanging off a cliff with one hand and picks him up in the other hand and throws him, literally throws him up over, like, that's pretty cartoonish. The other thing, like, I like the physicality of the scene where they're kind of teetering back and forth on the giant's knee or whatever they're on. Yeah. And I would enjoy that if that was the only time they did it. But then we do basically the same thing with a broken bridge in the troll or the
Jackson loves
orc
that
scene later. Yeah, but it's like exactly the same. And it's like we've already seen that way back. I think it's in Fellowship.
Yeah, it's the Khazad-dûm. It's when they're escaping the Balrog.
So it's like, okay, 3 times? Really?
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. This whole scene, I'm like, this looks
cool
unbelievable.
Idea. It does.
But
Mountain Rock'em Sock'em robots. They look a little like Rock'em Sock'em robots.
Dude, I wrote down they look like Rock'em Sock'em robots. You know, it's cool for sure. It's like, oh, this is neat. Like, I love that idea of how big the scale is and everything.
When they're picking up the giant chunks of rock and throwing them at each other, and like half of one's head just like breaks off. Like, I get why you wanted to keep this in the movie, but also it adds very little just beyond that. Oh, cool. Look at those Rock'em Sock'em.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. Because even like in that moment where it starts splitting and then you realize it's the knees. Like, that's a cool, it's like a cool reveal, and you're like, wow, neat. But it's like you said, it's like, you feel like this movie has a lot of this where you're like.
And the problem with these scenes also, I mentioned it before, like we have these 13 dwarves, I don't even remember, to be honest with you, because it's been a while since I've seen this trilogy. Maybe some of them don't make it all the way through. Maybe some of them perish. Really? No. Well, like, if you were going to kill one, if you were going to have those stakes, and not that I'm saying I want them to kill one, right?
Yeah.
But like the trolls that were going to eat them, that whole bit in the woods, lots of fun, but it's like, there's no real stakes there, right? Like that would be a very stupid place story-wise for one of them to die. With these silly buffoonish trolls, if one of them ripped a dwarf in half, I'd be like, okay, wasn't expecting that. But you kind of know that's not going to happen. And it's the same thing here, right? Like this is just a little thing on the way from one place to another place. Nothing bad's going to really happen to anyone. We know these stone giants are never coming back. So it feels unnecessary maybe.
The troll scene, I think, at least provides you with some sort of like character thing, right? Bilbo is smart, right? And he is like,
sure.
And I like that scene. We didn't even talk about that scene. That's obviously like a very famous scene from The Hobbit, but it's like
such a Peter Jackson scene. Yeah, we should have talked about it, the blowing the nose in the food and all that. Like totally very bad taste. Like I enjoy it for that. I rember really liking that.
It's got a lot of personality. It's got a lot of personality.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
They're all like, oh, what's all this then? Like they've got like a lot like personalities. They've got the personalities that the orcs are missing in this, right? They've got a vibe to them. They're funny. The stone giants do not have that. No, I mean, they're just obviously a big visual set piece, but like you said, it's like this scene gives you nothing other than Thorin gets mad at Bilbo because he falls when the giant's knee they're standing on moves. Like, how can anyone prepare for that to happen? It's just a ridiculous thing, right? And so that's also where you get Sting, by the way, is in that cave when they find it. There's a couple of cool things. They get some cool ass swords from that troll encampment. And then the stone giants. And then they're separated from Gandalf at this point, and they kind of make camp, and basically Thorin is like, Bilbo, you never should have come here. You're useless, blah, blah, whatever. Bilbo is going to leave. He's going to sneak off in the middle of the night just to leave everybody and go back home. And he gets up by that dwarf with the weird hat. And it's a nice scene, And it shows you little Bilbo's like his own character flaws about not really thinking about like what these people are going through and why they're doing what they're doing. I really like when the dwarf says like, I wish you all the luck in the world. I really mean that. Like it feels like really genuine and it's like a well-acted moment. And we get the great thing with the sword. The sword glowing always is a great
I like it too. Yeah.
Visual way to be like, oh shit, there's danger going on, and we get like basically what should be the climax of the movie, though we have like another climax happens after, which is the problem, and one of the problems of the movie, right? Which is that they basically get taken by this goblin like horde.
Oh boy, I thought this was the climax of the movie. I was like, okay, they go in there and then we meet Gollum, and then this is over, and it goes on like 45 minutes beyond that.
Yeah. So these two scenes, the goblin scene, really only held back by the fact that there's too much CG in it. There's just too much CG in it. Though I do like the whole Goblin King's like vibe going on. I don't understand why he has like a giant ball sack chin, but he's got like a
because it's fun to animate that. Yeah. I love his voice. I love
his voice is great.
Barry Humphries, I think, is the actor.
Yeah. I love when he's like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Like he's kind of like
soft spoken and kind of fun. Yeah, I enjoy him a lot.
Yeah, I like him
Very
too.
Disney.
Yeah. And Bilbo gets separated here, right? And he ends up falling down this passage. And this is where he encounters Gollum, right? The Gollum scene, I think the Riddles and Dark scene is fantastic. It's a great like set piece moment.
It's the best looking Gollum, as we've said before.
Yeah.
The performance is great. I like, there's a little bit of the talking to himself kind of stuff here. Uh-huh. It's just, it's not overdone. It's just a little bit. I like Bilbo's reaction to that, where he kind of overhears it. And he's like, fuck is wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
As you should. Yeah, like that feels like good prequel stuff,
Yeah. And, Circus is killing it in here. Freeman's really good playing opposite him. And
I love the scenes where they're just trying to avoid each other and you see him kind of run by like a crack in the cave there. He just kind of appears for a second in the back of the frame. That's really nice.
Yeah. The riddles are fun. I like all that stuff. That scene's great. I have no notes on that scene at all. It's one thing where like, yep, this is like one of the things he just knew exactly what his take on it was and what he wanted it to be. And because it's just this isolated thing between two characters, he doesn't have to worry about all the other business. And it's just like, okay, let's just have these two people in this room together.
Yeah, basically just talking. Which is really nice. And this is the scene that really could have made this. This could have been the crassest, most like, here's your fan favorite character. We're bringing him back. Enjoy it, guys. And it's really not that. Like, it feels like it has a genuine place in the story. It really nicely sets up. I mean, we get the ring here. Mm-hmm. So that's really important. Like, it is kind of a momentous thing in the overall scope of this as a trilogy and as a franchise. Yeah, like, I agree. No notes. It's really, really good. It's really enjoyable. Like, I think when I first, I also like, when he shows up, right? Like he just kind of comes around a rock. It's not like this big reveal, like the camera just dollies up, pushes up on like, shit, there's Gollum. It's like, oh no, he just like kind of pads around the corner. It's like, oh, there he is.
Yeah. And I like when Bilbo puts on the ring, it still has that same like wavy thing, but because Sauron isn't like there in power, it's like it's not terrifying. It's just like a little bit weird. And I think you understand like, okay, this is why Bilbo just put it on all the time. Because why wouldn't he? Like, it's just, he gets to be invisible. Like, he
doesn't seem to suffer really badly from it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no downside to it from at this point, right? He's kind of doing it sort of out of the gaze of what we're going to deal with in the Fellowship and the other Lord of the Rings movies.
Love his escape too, where he like gets a running start and jumps on Gollum's head and jumps out like Mario.
And look, Freeman has to do a very difficult thing here, which is that not only is it obviously, it's set up in this movie, this idea that Gandalf has that thing that he says to him where he's like, sometimes not killing someone is
true courage is not who to kill, it's who to spare.
Who to spare.
What a lovely sentiment that is.
Yeah, live up to that, but also has to live up to that fucking line in Fellowship of the Ring, that scene in Moria where he's like, Bilbo's decision, basically decides the fate of the entire world. Like, he makes the decision, and I think Freeman does a great job of playing the gravity of the moment for the character, but not overplaying it to be like, I understand the stakes of what I'm doing.
Event that's going to happen, in the entire universe.
Yeah, and I think the movie, when it's doing stuff like this, where it's sort of back on theme with what the Lord of the Rings trilogy is about, which is like little decisions by single people can sometimes make really big changes and repercussions in the world.
And it's really well done. It's really well directed. The moment where he's got the sword at his neck there, it's just, it's very, we know it's not going to happen, obviously, but there's like real tension there and you really kind of feel it. Like, it's an impactful moment. And, I guess I just kind of want more of those. Like this is another one of those scenes that shows you what this movie's capable of. And, just do more of that.
Yeah. And it's also the thing where like he does, I love two things. He almost stabs him twice in two different moments. And then Jackson, who is not known for showing restraint as a filmmaker, doesn't do the thing. You don't hear Gandalf's voice, right? You don't hear him say, sometimes it's not taking a life.
I was waiting for that. Yeah, I was like, they're going to ruin the scene by throwing that in there. And I was very impressed that they didn't.
And I also think great job. Again, one time they recapture the magic in that Gollum scene where I can't remember exactly what the line was, but there's that one moment where like you just laugh because like Circus is just funny. Like he's just funny in the things he's saying. Oh, it's when he's like, and if he loses, we eats him whole. And Freeman's just like, okay. Like the way they interact is just great. I love that, like, you know, Gollum is into the riddles, like all this kind of stuff. And that fight too, I love that the internal fight is there, but he's like, no, just eat him. And he's like, no, I want to play the game.
Yeah,
like,
I
haven't like been around
really
anybody. I want to play a game. I don't want to just eat him. I can eat him eventually. And there's a moment where Bilbo can't get the time riddle right, and Gollum picks up the rock, and he's getting ready to like hit him with it or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's when he's trying to figure out with when he eventually says what's in your pocket, when he's trying to figure out the last riddle. And then he's like, that's not fair. And you tricked us. And he drops the rock, and Freeman's just kind of like he points at the rock he was going to use to like bash his head in. Like, you're one to talk. Like all that stuff a lot. Great scene. And I think the goblin scene is really fun. You know,
it is.
I think they do a smart thing of like taking us not cutting back between it. Right.
I'm sorry. I kept calling them orcs before. They're goblins. They're not orcs.
Yeah, they call them goblins. It's one of those weird things where like they call them goblins in The Hobbit, and then like they're basically orcs and everything else. It's just like this.
I keep referring to the orc cave. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I knew what you meant. Obviously, I knew what you meant. But it's one of those things where it's like in like Lord of the Rings and like Tolkien talk, it's like goblin and orc are just different, are the same creature, but people call them different things. It's like that kind of thing, you know? And I think they call them.
Well, it's hard to tell, right? Because these creatures in this movie look so different from the real people in makeup in the original trilogy. Yeah. So it's like,
and goblins are sometimes a little bit different. Like they're like sort of like
a little more monstrous looking, a
little bit more like you would expect, like a children's, like, you know, like,
a little sillier, a little softer.
Yeah, a little softer. They like cannot go out in the daytime at all. Like that, like they have like orcs don't like go out in the light. It makes them weak, but like goblins like just don't go do it at all. But you know, I think it's a fun scene. I think, like you said, again, it's really driven by the fact that it's got a fun performance at the center of it, where this guy's just the Goblin King is being like,
oh, I love when he just shows up, you know, a couple times during the scene, like they're running away, and then he just like jumps out in front. Like he's pretty agile for somebody who weighs like 10,000 pounds.
Yeah, true. You know, Gandalf shows up and does like a whole thing, right, and tells them to run.
Oh, he's like whacking them with the staff back and forth. I do. I mean, I love an action scene like this, like the verticality of it. You know, it feels a little bit like a video game. There's a scene just like this in the Super Mario Brothers movie that I like a lot too. But I enjoy that. You know, the setting is really great. The kind of up and down about it, you know, falling off of things, and, you know, the teetering bridge and cut the rope and all that stuff. Like, it is a lot of fun. It's very Temple of Doom. I like that movie a lot.
Yeah.
It's calling back to that in a lot of ways. But, you know, it's lighthearted in ways that, you know, if you're just doing that, I'm cool with it. But, you know, the scene that follows this is so not that.
Exactly. And again, that's why we have that mashing of tones that I don't think really work together is exactly what we're talking about here.
And you've got, you know, there is some darkness in the Gollum stuff that we're intercutting with this anyway. So it's like, yeah, maybe this would have just been the more logical place. Even if you're leaving the other stuff in, put that in the next movie, because this would be a nice place to just leave us here.
But it's because,
although I love the closing shot of this, we'll get to it.
Yeah, but they're like solving a problem. What Jackson is doing is solving a problem he's created for himself, which is like, I need him to see this character that killed his dad, so he knows like what he's up against. So we have to do the big final scene at the end, even though that's not a thing you have to be doing here, right? And it's like, this scene is fun. Again, too much CG. You know, it's fun though. Like fun. The one time like all the dwarves work is like you can do a lot of weird shit with like 13 bodies having to do a bunch of stuff, you know, fun and cool stuff to see. I like the way that he takes out the Goblin King. He's like, what you gonna do now, wizard? And just kills him.
That's great. And the scene where he, you know, they're finally, they fall down to the bottom of the shaft or whatever, and they're all catching their breath. I remember laughing out loud hard in the theater when the king just like falls on.
Yeah. Good slapstick. Fun.
Yeah, like absolutely. Very, very Looney Tunes. I love it.
Yeah, a good like, okay, this scene is over. And then you think like, okay, the movie is over. Like Bilbo's going to reunite with him for some reason. And then like that scene that happens right after is when they're in the woods and they're counting and he's like, nope, I'm here. And we get that speech, right? Where he says like, you know, yep, you're right. I miss my house. I miss my books. I miss my life. But that's why I'm staying, because you don't have that.
You don't have that, and I want you to have that.
Yeah.
Which shows you, I really I don't love Bilbo in the original trilogy. He seems kind of selfish and crass, and it's kind of shitty in a lot of ways. And in this movie, I really sympathize with him, and it's like that kind of stuff, right? He has that pure heart that Frodo has. You don't see it as much, because also he's so, the ring, at the time, he's like, oh, what, can you let me hold it for a while? Like that kind of thing. Like he's so devious.
Yeah.
And this kind of shows, I think, who he really is. And I love that. And a lot of that is Freeman's performance, too. He's just so likable and so earnest. And he's a perfect choice. He's, like I said, he's wonderful in this movie.
Yeah. And I think it's great that Jackson has him, hear all the bad stuff they're saying about him.
Yeah.
And make the choice to stay. Right? Yep. Because that could have been the reason to go, you're like, okay, yeah, fine. I'll just go then. They don't care. They don't want me here. And, that whole thing, I think really makes it work really, really well, where he has to make the choice to stay with all the information, right? He has all the information about how they feel about him, what's going on, and he's going to stay and keep going, right? So that really works dramatically. And then we get this ending thing, which, again,
not a bad action sequence,
right?
No,
a cool
climbing
idea.
Up the trees and falling off the side of them. That's great.
Yeah, but it's one of these where, again, the blocking idea, or it's okay, they run up the trees, the wolves can't get them, but then when the big orc comes, all of a sudden the wolves can climb up the trees and get them.
Yeah.
And it's
well, they're gnawing the trees. They're doing kind of the beaver thing where they're taking limbs off. I sort of, I
call them wolves.
Really...
They're wargs. I don't want any Tolkien people to come after me. They're wargs. I know they're wargs, but I'm just calling them wolves.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to go there, but yeah.
Yeah. And this moment, it's okay, this is the one where Gandalf gets the little moth and he talks to it, and the eagles are coming, right? If you've seen Lord of the Rings. And this happens in the book, but it's it's the exact mimicry of the scene that I don't like. It's if eagles had shown up, okay, fine, but we have to see Gandalf do the whole thing to the moth or whatever. And then that they're coming, right? It's okay, the clock is ticking. We're just got to get through this scene to get the eagles to come and save them, right?
There's one great shot in there. I think it's Bilbo, where one of them picks him up and it's talons, and he's ew, just for a moment. It's oh, this giant bird just grabbed me. I really like that because clearly, the score is just rising up there, and this is supposed to be this very triumphant moment. But it's you're in a gross giant bird claw, and that probably would be a little squicky.
It was, and I do like some of the animation on the bird, when they do the close-up of it holding Thorin.
I love the birdemic wide shot of them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. His claw moves a little bit. It's he's the claws are rearranging themselves to get the grip better. That's what I mean by there are people who just care. Because you don't have to do that. An animator was no. The claws have to move a little bit. They have to
I said it jokingly, but the wide shot of the two mountains.
Oh, it looks so good.
Framing the birds flying, the eagles flying across the frame there. I really like that, Mm-hmm. And because this is a 3-hour movie and we're right at the end here, you don't need to do that. But let's do a couple more moments of just beautiful pictorial composition. The last shot's very much like that, as I was saying. So this movie's not terrible. And
No.
I don't like that people now kind of look at it as terrible.
They do, and people definitely do. They definitely have a thing of ugh, this is name bad addition to a movie series that you that ruins the movies for you. They put this in that bucket. This movie definitely is not that, and I do we. The problem is here, we're repeating sort of moments sometimes, and it's Thorin going after the guy. We know Thorin's stubborn. We know he's bullheaded. So I buy that he would go after this creature or whatever. I like that Bilbo is the one who kind of goes to save him, and it's important because Thorin needs to see this guy will.
I love that scene.
Yeah, will stand up, for me. And Bilbo, it doesn't put the ring on. He doesn't do any of that stuff. He just goes in there and tries to do what is right for this person. Like that a lot.
Yeah, risk his life against impossible odds.
Yes, that's what Hobbit do, right? So it's good that he's doing it. And then we get, the final scene on that bluff or whatever, which...
Oh, this got me good.
I love the scene, right? I love the dialogue in it. I do wish they were sitting just on a real fucking hill. Sit on a real hill. Why are you on...
You're in New Zealand. It's everywhere you look is that.
Yeah, you can paint in the mountain in the distance. Yeah. That looks great. cool, do that. But like, it's just like, look at a shot from the two towers where they're standing next to like Edoras and Rohan, and then look at like this. Which one would you prefer? Like, it's just crazy to me. Like, you don't even need a set for this. Just go stand on one of the amazing vistas that you've got in real life.
That's what I'm saying.
And film it, you know? But great scene. I mean, I want you, you talking about how much you love this scene. Would you want anything you want to say about it specifically?
No, I mean, I think I said it before. Like, we don't get a lot of Thorin in this movie. We don't get enough Thorin in this movie, and we don't really get to know him very well. He's just kind of a dick throughout most of it. And, you know, we don't really, like, there's no arc at all, and it's Bilbo saves his life, and he just, you know, he does the thing, like, he kind of, there's a little bit of a misdirect there. He's like, you know, he's insulting him for a while, and it's like, I was completely wrong about you, right? You know that's coming. But it still works for some reason. Like for some reason, and I don't know, maybe it's the performance, or maybe it's just because I do weirdly, like, my heart's in this movie. I mean, I the whole time I'm like, there's bad things about it, but like, I can't help but be invested. I can't help but love these characters and love this world and be happy to be in it again. And this is one of those moments where it's just like, I'm happy. Like, I'm glad these two characters have come together, and I like the way they speak it. I don't know. It's just it's well done.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel fake. It's nice. It's just a nice scene that kind of reinforces that theme of the entire franchise that we have been talking about. You know, it's about honor and friendship and sacrifice, and you know, here it all is in this one like beautifully acted little moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's the end of the movie. We kind of, you know, they see birds flying towards the mountain, and we follow that bird to the mountain, and we go inside, and we get to see a little quick, like, tease of Smaug, who's going to be obviously a big part of the next movie, you know, a major player in the next movie.
Great looking eye that opens up there. Yeah.
Great looking eye. And I mean, we'll talk about it when we get to the next movie. They pay it off. I mean, as far as I remember, I think Smaug ends up working very well in
He's
that
impressive.
next movie.
Yeah.
Next movie. And, you know, there's not a lot of things that are bad when you're hearing Benedict Cumberbatch's voice come out of it either, you know? So we'll talk about that next time, though. But yeah, that's The Hobbit, The Unexpected Journey. You know, I obviously a couple years ago, I went through on Letterboxd and basically tried to like be like, let me just mark all the movies I've ever watched ever, and then I'll give them a quick ranking, right? I was just kind of like, whatever. And back then, I think I gave this 2.5 out of 5 stars. I watched it.
That's harsh.
It was harsh. I just didn't have good thoughts about it. You know, it's been a long time since I watched it. Chief in my memory is the third movie, which we'll get to. I rewatched it this time, and I bumped it up a full, you know, star. So now it's like a 3.5 out of 5. It's like a 7 out of 10 movie. You know, I think it's a really, really fun, well-made movie that just suffers in the ways that we've, you know, talked about. It's not perfect. It has a lot of problems, but I ended up coming up with being like, no, this is good. Like, this is a good movie. Yep. It's not an all-timer 5-star masterpiece, but like...
No, but it's way more solid than I thought it was going to be, and I was very happy about that.
Yeah. And like you said, knowing what it took to make this movie, it's very impressive it came out to be this, right? Because it could have been a 2 out of 10 movie, and it's not that, right? It's making a competent, fun adventure movie.
And I remember, and they're not coming to mind now. They're right. I don't even know if I put it in the information I sent to you, but there were a couple other directors they were considering between Del Toro and Jackson, and like, not that any of them were bad directors or I'm talking shit about them, but like, I thought about what kind of movie they probably would have made, and it's like, I'm glad this is a Peter Jackson film.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, yes. That definitely is what it is. I don't think you did put any alternate directors in here. You know, this movie opened, you know, on December 13th of 2012. And, you know, it made $303 million in the United States and $714 million international. It made over $1 billion. Like, it didn't review particularly great. You know,
no, much more mixed than I remember, actually.
People weren't very happy with it. People were kind of mixed on it for sure. But, you know, it made a bunch of money, and
we knew it would.
Basically, yes. I mean, of course it would have at that point. You know, you think about it though, like if it had been like universally liked, right? Imagine how much money it would have made. You know, that's the thing too. I think it's part of this conversation is like, it's like, just imagine if it had been like a 5-star movie to people, like it would have done crazy business, right? And I mean, like, it's not like the next one drops off like a tremendous amount. The next one makes $959 million worldwide. So it's not like people were like, don't want this. They went and saw the next one just
pretty
fine.
Close to $1 billion. Yeah. Not
yeah.
bad.
You know, the studio was not unhappy with what was going on. But, you know, I think also you're in this moment, right, where Jackson finishes Return of the King and he's on top of the world. He makes King Kong. We talked about the kind of mixed reception as well to King Kong. And then he makes a movie that people did not like at all, in The Lovely Bones. And so when he comes back to this, you know, it's not like he's on top of the world, right? It's like, I think there is a section of people who are out to get him in a certain way, who are like, okay, Pete, like, let's just see like what this is going to be, you know, and waiting for, you know, for any misstep to sort of jump on it and be like, see, we told you. He doesn't got it anymore, and this was pointless, and this is, you know, 3 movies, well, you know, whatever. So, like, all of those things don't help, right? There's just a lot of other stuff in the soup here that can easily take down a movie like this. And it did. Obviously, the public perception on them is not great, but I really do wonder, as with all things, there are people who saw these movies when they were 10 years old, and I really wonder now how they feel about them in their mid-20s. Are they the kind of people, you know, this happens in movies all the time where they're like, no, Hobbit movies are great. What are you talking about? Like, you know, like, they're awesome. And I just really wonder, you know, what that vibe is going to be in a couple of years, you know?
Well, I agree, because I definitely met people that, you know, saw the Star Wars prequel trilogy as their Star Wars movies. And it's like, that was their movies. I don't think anyone's going to do it with the Disney ones, with the sequel trilogy, but
you never know. I mean, there are people who are kids when they see those movies. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I never thought that would happen with the prequel movies, you know?
No, I didn't either. But I mean, you know, the critical reevaluation they've had recently is a lot because of that. You know,
it absolutely is.
It's that generation having seen those as kids and going back to them and seeing at least they had a point. At least they were going for something.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe to them, the older ones looked a little stodgy or something, and not quite as visually busy. Mm-hmm. So I get it. And yeah, I could see these, although I don't know.
I'm just curious.
I am too, because I'm interested what the perception is now of these.
Yeah, because it feels like still now, Lord of the Rings is a movies that people still watch and still get into. You know, like you see like the kind of what I judge it by a little bit is like the sort of like YouTube like reactor like, you know, chain of things, which has become a very big deal. Like they all still do the Lord of the Rings movies, right? It's still and they still do crazy numbers.
Memes and everything, you know, you're not seeing Indiana Jones memes, you're seeing Lord of the Rings memes.
Yeah, you're not. The only Hobbit meme you're seeing is they do use that, like, I miss my books, I miss my armchair. Mm-hmm. Like that's one that people do use, right? But yeah, no, it's kind of fascinating to me, and I don't know how to judge it because obviously we're not in that generation of people. You know, we're even talking like a generation past the Star Wars prequel people. You know, for the Hobbit people. Sure. So it's like, you know, those people are just coming of age right now, where they will have like buying power and will start becoming part of like the cultural conversation. So I would love to, you know, see in the next couple of years if these things get reevaluated and recontextualized with a new group of people.
Interesting. Like now that you mention it, though, like, you know, my students are about that age. They were kind of born in the very early 2000s, would have seen these as kids. And like, I've definitely had conversations with them about the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, which they would have had to see like, you know, at home.
Yeah.
And these never seem to come up.
I wonder too, if it's like a thing where it's like their parents are like, oh, you got to watch Lord of the Rings, but don't watch The Hobbit. Those things suck. Yep. You know what I mean? Sure. It's sort of like the way I am with the Star Wars movies with my son, where I'm like, we're going to watch the original 3. And then after that, you can choose if you want to watch more of them.
You're on your own.
I'll watch them with you, but I'm not going to force you to watch the other ones. You know what I mean?
Good parenting. Yeah.
But, you know, and my son is 8. He gets a kick out of me criticizing movies. He'll be like, we watched Jurassic Park recently. And he's like, Daddy, are there other Jurassic Park movies? I was like, yes, but this is the only one you need to watch. And he starts like maniacally laughing because he doesn't yet understand why things are good and bad.
Wait till he realizes you're right.
Yeah, because he's like, Daddy, what makes it worse? And I'm like, it's just worse. I don't know how to explain it to you in a way you'll understand. You know, so that's what it is here. I am, to be honest with you, before we start, you know, very excited to do Jackson. I was interested in watching these movies again. They were the ones that I was the most like, I am just not like psyched about it. You know, I think we'll have interesting conversations, but watching the actual movies, I was like, I don't know if I'm up for this. And then I was like, one of the things I was like, I delayed watching Unexpected Journey into like the last possible like 3 hours I could carve out for myself, and then I'm halfway through it and I'm like, I don't know, man, like this is good. Like, I don't know what to say.
I did the same thing. I was like, I'm having a pretty good time here. Yeah. It's the score also, like bringing back Howard Shore, bringing back the music from the original trilogy, like, and in a way that doesn't feel forced, like a nostalgia thing, or it's just, that is the music of this world. And
when you show Rivendell, you play the Rivendell music. That's just the way it goes,
and, it's established very early in this film, and like, that went a long way for me too.
Yeah. There's new good leitmotifs in it as well. I think like the sort of like Thorin theme is actually really good. And it has some power to it.
It's like a continuation of the original trilogies, its approach to things and its way of giving every character their own sort of theme. And I really like it.
I mean, that's just John Williams stuff, right? It's like, when Leia is whatever movie Leia is in the Star Wars movies, you play the Leia theme. Like why wouldn't you? Like it would actually be criminal to not play the Leia theme, So when you see The Ring for the first time, you're going to play like you have to, like you just have to do it, When you're in the Dol Guldur and you're dealing with, the freaking Witch King of Agmar, you're going to play the fucking Ringwraith music, like you're going to do that stuff. It's just what you're going to do. When the Eagles come, you're going to play the Eagle, the Eagle theme. So that's just the way it goes, and I think that stuff I'm all just like on board with. Like, do that stuff as long as it makes sense and it fits into this world. Do it. I think all that stuff is totally good. And I think this movie really, like I said, does not have many. It has a couple of moments where I'm like, okay, like let's just not do the exact Lord of the Rings thing now. But most of the time I was actually pleasantly surprised. Like there is less of that stuff in this than I remember, but it made me worried that I'm like, maybe all that stuff I remember is just from the next couple of movies and I'm going to be really pissed off when I see that stuff. So we'll see. I remember the second one being a kick-ass, fun adventure movie. That's what I remember about the second one. I remember the like barrel ride down the river or whatever, having bad CG, but being a lot of fun. Like that's kind of what I remember. Yeah, I felt
the same way. It is, again, that sort of cartoony energy. I like that a lot. Yeah. There's some stuff with Smaug and
there's some good Smaug stuff. And there is like a competing like riddles in the dark, like, scene in Desolation of Smaug. So I think we're going to have some fun with that stuff. But I'm curious if that stuff is going to live up to what I remember it being, or if it's going to be worse than I remember it being. Because it's like one of those things where we're going to the opposite here, where I saw the second movie and I was like, this is what I wanted the first movie to be. And now I'm worried because I like this one so much more. I'm going to watch the second one and be like, not as good as I remember it. That's what I'm worried about. But we'll see.
Well, it was nice to watch this one again. I really, it's not something I would have probably revisited anytime soon.
Me neither.
That's one of the joys of doing this show is like, I forgot how much I liked it and it seemed to mostly hold up. And, you can't, like with Peter Jackson in this world with these actors, how bad could it be?
That's true. How bad could it be? We'll see. We'll see by the end.
Right. Yeah. We're going to find out.
Because, I don't want to hype it up too much, but we're staring down the barrel of what I think is definitely his worst movie when we get to the third one of these three movies, but we'll see. We'll see if it's just
here's it. I remember the first two fairly well, like scenes from this played out. And it's like, I remember seeing the thing with the Goblin King falling on them. It's like, I remember laughing out loud at that. And like, I didn't see for some reason, I'm not even sure why, I didn't see Five Armies in the theater, which I had seen all of these in the theater. And I don't know, I was just like busy that year or something. Like something kept me away from it, which I think that was when I moved. I moved, not far, but like halfway across Connecticut. And I was just, busy setting up house and whatever when it was out. Yeah. So
my remembrance is it's barely a movie. Like that is really what I remember. It is just.
But I mean, I couldn't, if you asked me, like describe a scene in that movie as like, I don't know, there's like a battle and
that's the whole movie, dude.
5 armies. Yeah.
That's the whole movie. That's the problem with the movie. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Again, I haven't watched it in 10 years, so I don't even like,
Me either. Yeah.
So I remember Lee Pace on a antlered like giant deer.
I do like Lee Pace. He's good in this too. We didn't mention him.
He's barely in this, but
I know.
Yeah. I mean, I love Lee Pace. No Lee Pace shade on this show. All right. It's great in the first Guardians movie. It's great in Pushing Daisies.
I love The Fall.
It's awesome. Have you seen
Catch Fire?
Have you seen Bodies, Bodies, Bodies?
No, not yet. Is he in that?
Yeah, he's in that. He's
really
funny.
The Pete Davidson movie. He's in that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. He's really funny in it. He's very funny in it. But that's going to do it for the Intrepid Filmographers for this week. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. The review really important. Also, the best thing you can do to promote the show is if you like it, share it with somebody who you think would also like it. That's the best way to really get the word out about the show. That's the most impactful thing you can do, is really just bother one of your friends to try to get them to watch it. Just send them a link, be like, oh, you should listen this week, and maybe they won't do it, but if you keep saying to them, eventually they'll listen to it. That's what I'm trying to do with my friends for the other movie podcasts I listen to, but they're never going to listen to them. But I will keep trying over and over and over again. So that's what you have to do. You have to be an evangelist for the show. Intrepidfilmographers.com if you want to go to the Substack and actually see the posts and stuff like that. And if you use Substack, you can always subscribe for free on there as well. Next time we'll be back with The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. But until then, thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you to everybody who is listening. Until next time, be good to one another. Later.